Hello, I'm Finola from RaaS and welcome to our 2024 Outlook series. Today, our focus is on NT energy-focused company, Empire Energy Group, ASX ticker EEG, which provides investors pure exposure to the Beetaloo, Australia's next major gas region. And joining me today is Managing Director Alex Underwood. Welcome, Alex, and thanks for coming back to the video pool.
Thanks, Finola. Great to see you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So, Alex, 2024 is shaping up to be a really big year for Empire Energy Group, having acquired the Rosalind Park gas plant at the end of 2023, which immediately gives you a low-cost and low-capital processing option for Carpentaria Stage 1. Could you take us through the milestones that we can expect to see from Empire through 2024?
Certainly. So it's an incredibly exciting year we've got ahead of us, and I'm very glad that our team's come back to work well rested because we've got a lot on at the moment. Our focus now is very much on getting EP187 into production, which in the success case would be the first commercial production ever out of the Beetaloo and a real milestone for us in the basin. We do need to get a lot of ducks in a row in order to achieve that goal for this year. Essentially, the work programs we're looking at would involve drilling a couple more development wells and then installing the gas plant that we bought last year at what we believe to be a very attractive price, and then hooking those wells into the pipeline that traverses through our tenement. In order to achieve that goal, we need to get regulatory approvals. We'll shortly be submitting what's called an environment management plan to the NT government. That would be our 5th environment management plan since I started running the company 5 years ago. We are currently negotiating gas sales agreements with a range of parties into what is an incredibly tight market. We'd need to hook into the pipeline. And if we can pull all of that work together successfully, we would expect to be in production and cash flow, sometime in early 2025.
And standing here at the beginning of 2024, Alex, what are you seeing in terms of buyer interest and demand?
Yeah, so we've commenced a marketing process for the sale of gas from our pilot project. We kicked that off in the 4th quarter of last year. The level of interest we have seen for buying gas from our project has been, frankly, quite overwhelming. So we approached the East Coast gas market quite broadly, and we've had very strong interest to acquire our gas to places as far afield as Melbourne, which I think really tells you how critically short the East Coast gas market is looking to become in the period ahead. I note further that the NT gas market itself, which would be a logical home for our initial pilot production volumes, is also extremely short. So the Blacktit gas field, which has been really the stalwart of domestic gas production in the Northern Territory for many years, along with the fields in the Amadeus Basin operated by Central Petroleum, has completely dropped off a cliff in terms of its production. And that's causing significant issues for the NT gas market. It's been publicly reported that the NT has been buying gas, emergency gas, from gas that would otherwise be exported to Asia. And so, there is very strong demand for our gas, and we are in negotiations at the moment. And obviously, I can't say too much about that at this stage, but we are quite confident that we should have an agreement in place shortly, and that could have some pretty material implications for us around financing. So if we can get a gas sales agreement in place on attractive terms, then that obviously could really underpin the ability to utilise project financing to help support our development activities.
And the market only looks to be going tighter, Alex. I mean, with, there's some of the industry noises are suggesting gas price openings of greater than $16 a gigajoule. What are you hearing in terms of the overall tightness and the declining supply from legacy gas fields?
Yeah, well, I mean, Australia's east coast is facing this perennial issue of tightness in the gas market. So, the core source of supply for the east coast for decades and decades has been the fields in the Bass Strait, and they are going through precipitous declines in production. I think last year, the level of production decline in aggregate in the Bass Strait was somewhere in the order of 25 or 30%. And so new sources of supply are clearly required. The coal seam methane fields in Queensland, they still have a long life ahead of them. But what tends to happen in the development of gas fields is that you drill your best locations first. And so a lot of the core areas of the coal seam methane fields have been drilled out as well. And so, it would be reasonable to expect that the best productivity of the coal seam fields in Queensland is probably behind us. We've obviously seen delay after delay for the Narrabri project, which I think for New South Wales, where we're currently sitting, had been relied upon as a source of new supply. And so, we see that, a new source of supply is desperately needed. There's been talk of LNG import terminals, and there's one that apparently has reached FID out of Port Kembla, albeit there don't seem to be many customers for that project. And the problem with LNG import is that, first of all, it is fundamentally an inferior environmental outcome, because you've got to burn a lot of energy to liquefy the gas, and then you've got to burn a lot of energy turning it, regasifying it. But also LNG imports would face global LNG prices. I think right now the LNG price is somewhere around $11 US, which converting it to Aussie is probably 16 Aussie dollars. So, we do need new sources of domestic supply going into Australia's east coast. And, when you look at the options out there, I think the Beetaloo is really the only major source coming forward that can help resolve some of these shortfalls coming up.
And Alex, do you see any applications for Empire in Santos's federal court win? I mean, there are suggestions from the AFR that there could be cost blow-ups of up to $800 million on the Brossa. Could this perhaps highlight the benefit of starting small and building as opposed to the need to scale from day one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting case, and we're still digesting it ourselves. But overall, I'd say what a fantastic result that we're seeing a return to common sense in Australia now. I mean, I don't have any direct involvement in that project, but my understanding is that the Santos went through very broad consultation with traditional owners and had all the various approvals they needed. And the environmental activist-driven litigation is fundamentally damaging to Australia's economy. It hurts all of us. If our exports of gas fall, our national prosperity will fall. And I think that the business model of some of these activists law firms is really starting to be called out in the media this week. In terms of what it means for us directly, I think it actually has a relatively limited impact on us as a company, because we are governed in relation to Indigenous matters under completely separate legislation for onshore being on Aboriginal land as opposed to the offshore regime. And I note that the Australian Resources Minister has just kicked off a consultation process to strengthen that offshore legislation. The legislation under which we are governed, it's been in place since 1974. There's been lots of case law that establishes very clearly what the responsibilities are of us as an operator and of the Land Council and the Minister. So, to that end, I think, it should be a relatively limited impact on us directly. The other point I would make here is that one of the benefits of operating onshore is that you can develop your project quite incrementally. So, when you're offshore, you have to go out and spend billions of dollars to develop the project, and it comes on at full steam. The learned experience of shale gas and also many conventional onshore gas projects around the world is that you can incrementally build up your production over time, and that is absolutely our strategy. You know, phase one, we're looking at putting gas into the existing pipeline until it reaches its capacity. Phase two would be larger volumes to Australia's east coast, working with APA Group to build additional pipeline infrastructure. And then phase three could be looking at LNG scale production down the track. So, you know, we can limit our exposure, you might say, as we incrementally grow our production.
And just could you give us a little bit of an update, Alex, on how you're progressing with stakeholder engagement? Obviously, that was one of the key components of that case as well.
Absolutely. So under the Northern Territory environmental regulations, we are required to consult very broadly with people right across the community. And then we also have very well-defined obligations for consultation with the traditional owners on whose land we operate. And over the fourth quarter of last year, we carried out a very, very extensive community consultation process more broadly. So, you know, I was present at stakeholder engagement sessions we held in Darwin just before Christmas. Some key members of our team went to communities all around the Northern Territory. So we've been carrying out a very broad consultation process. And then also our more specific Indigenous consultation processes with our traditional owners are ongoing. So as I've mentioned before, I think we've held 30 on-country meetings as a company since we kicked off in 2011. And that process is ongoing in order to get the consent of the traditional owners to move from the exploration phase into the production phase. And I must say that once that consent is given, the benefits to the traditional owners we expect to be very, very substantial. You know, it's not only royalty payments that will start flowing, but also, you know, great opportunities for employment in areas that are otherwise, you know, quite lacking in economic development.
Well, thank you, Alex, for joining me today to discuss the outlook for Empire Energy in 2024. I'm looking forward to catching up with you over the course of the next 12 months to check on the company's progress.
Thank you, Finola.